I was talking with a couple recently, done almost everything right. They saved consistently and invested early, and by the time they reached their 60s, they felt ready to retire. But as we started digging in, a few things jumped out, small details that could have completely changed their retirement experience. My name is Zach Morris, and I'm a certified financial planner and founder of Paces Ferry Wealth Advisors. And today, I'm going to walk through some of the most common retirement mistakes that I see and how you can avoid them so that your money can truly work for you in this next chapter. Each mistake that I'm going to talk about builds on the last, and by the end, you'll see how all the pieces, your investments, your spending, healthcare, and taxes all connect into one complete plan. So even if you've done everything right up until this point, you'll know exactly how to make it all work together in retirement. The first retirement mistake people make is not having a financial plan before they retire. Too many people wait until the finish line. They call a financial advisor and say, here's how much I spend, I'm retiring next year. Or even, I'm already retired, can I do it? Having a financial plan is about knowing where you are, where you want to be, and what it will take to get there. The best time to start is early. 10 years before retirement is ideal, but even 3 to 5 years out gives you much more time to make meaningful changes. Those last few working years are usually your highest earning years. That's when you can catch up, save aggressively, and lock in the progress that makes retirement smoother. A real plan can give you direction, confidence, and a clear understanding of what it will take to live the life that you want in retirement. I'd love to know what's been most challenging or what's worked well for you as you've started mapping out your retirement. Please leave a note in the comments. Now, the second big mistake that we see is not changing your investment allocation before retirement. There's an old saying that says, what got you here won't get you there. The portfolio that got you to retirement isn't necessarily the one that will get you through retirement. As you get closer to retirement, you face something called sequence of return risk. The risk of poor market performance early in retirement while you're taking money out of that portfolio to live. If you've always been heavily invested in stocks, that might have worked well during your accumulation years, but now you're moving from contributing to withdrawing. In retirement, you need a balance between growth and income, and you need to think about how much volatility or uncertainty you want to face when you're no longer adding money to the portfolio, but instead you're withdrawing it. At Paces Ferry Wealth Advisors, we often say, don't take more risk than you need to take in order to reach your goals. Going back to our first mistake we discussed, it's important to understand what your goals are so that you can have a better understanding of how that money needs to be invested in order to help you achieve those goals. So scaling back risk before you retire, or at least rebalancing to something that's more appropriate for your new phase of life, is a smart, disciplined move, not a fearful one. The third mistake we see, which is all too common, is leaving too much idle cash. This one flies under the radar because it feels safe, but in reality, it could be quietly eroding your purchasing power over time due to inflation. We often see retirees want to hold 3, 5, or even 10 years worth of cash because that's what feels comfortable. Maybe that worked during your working years when you had a steady paycheck, but in retirement, not letting your cash work for you could be doing more harm than good. Now, if you're holding $500,000 in cash and you're spending $100,000 a year, that looks like a 5-year cushion, but that money isn't growing. It's not generating income, and it's losing purchasing power every year. If instead you invested part of it, even conservatively, it could provide steady income and last longer. So building on our first two mistakes here, when you have a real financial plan and you have a portfolio that you feel comfortable with, you might be more likely to allow that money to work for you because you're aiming to achieve specific and defined goals. Your plan gives you structure, and that structure is what allows you to feel more confident without sacrificing achieving your goals in retirement. If you'd like a step-by-step framework to start building your plan, we created a free guide called Retirement by Design. It walks you through how to organize savings, map out income sources, and structure your portfolio for the retirement that you want without guesswork. You can download it using the link below, and it's a great way to take the next step while you've got retirement on your mind. Another mistake that's easy to overlook is not testing your retirement budget before you actually retire. A lot of people go into retirement assuming that they know what they spend, but once they stop working, the reality looks different. You might think that you're spending $80,000 a year, but after a few months, you realize it's closer to 120 or 140. That gap can be the difference between financial confidence and financial stress. The goal of planning for retirement is to enter this new stage of life with confidence, not uncertainty. This can often happen because of something called mental accounting bias. You're pulling a little bit from this account, a little bit from that account, and none of the balances actually seem to drop very much. But across all of your accounts combined, you're spending much more than you think. Before you retire, try doing a test run. Live off your projected retirement income for a few months, or even better, a year. Track what you actually spend. You might discover that travel, hobbies, home projects, and healthcare add up faster than you expected. The point isn't to restrict yourself, it's to see how your spending actually behaves when the paycheck stops. Because retirement isn't tax-free, and it's definitely not expense-free. There's going to be new costs, healthcare, taxes, and things that you didn't plan for. So testing your retirement budget early helps you adjust before it's too late. Speaking of healthcare, that brings us to our next mistake, which is failing to plan for healthcare. When you're working, a big part of your healthcare costs is covered by your employer. But once you retire, that coverage goes away. If you have a spending plan of $100,000 a year, but still have dependent children under the age of 26, healthcare alone could cost you $30,000 a year for a family of 4 before Medicare kicks in. And even once you're eligible for Medicare, if your spouse or kids still need private coverage, those costs don't disappear. They just shift to a different line item in your budget. Healthcare is one of those things that can easily become one of your largest expenses in retirement, and that's before you factor in long-term care or supplemental insurance. The key is to look at these costs before you retire, so you can build them into your plan, because retirement isn't about avoiding expenses, it's about anticipating them. Now, the last major mistake, and one that surprises a lot of people, is not understanding taxes in retirement. Retirement is not a tax-free stage of your life. In fact, there's a lot to understand. Withdrawals from IRAs and 401ks, Social Security, pensions, required minimum distributions, all of these can be combined to create unexpected tax bills. Let's start with Social Security. Despite what you might have heard from the White House or Social Security Administration, Social Security is not tax-free. There's a calculation called provisional income that determines how much of your benefit is taxable. Now, while only half of Social Security is included in your provisional income, so Social Security alone might not push you over this threshold, if you're married filing jointly and your provisional income is roughly $45,000 or more, 85% of your Social Security benefit becomes taxable. That threshold hasn't changed since 1993, even though incomes and inflation have gone up dramatically. Now, that 85% of Social Security that's included in your taxable income is then added to your other sources of income, your pensions, your dividends and interest, and so on, and it all counts toward your IRMA brackets, which is an acronym for Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. And these are the surcharges that increase your Medicare premiums. These Medicare premium brackets are cliffs, meaning if you're even $1 over the threshold, you're going to pay the higher rate. So then there's required minimum distributions to consider, or RMDs. Once you reach the age of 73 or 75, depending on your date of birth, you have to start taking money out of your pre-tax accounts. Let's say you only need $100,000 a year to live, but your RMD, Social Security, and other income push you to 140. Well, you're still taxed on the whole 140 whether you needed that income or not. That's why tax planning is such a critical part of retirement planning. A couple of strategies to consider for lowering your RMDs are qualified distributions, or QDs, which is a way of taking money out of your IRA early so that you can lower your future RMDs. You can also consider something called qualified charitable distributions, which once you reach the age of 70 and a half includes donating directly from your IRA, and that can satisfy part of your RMD once you have to start taking those. And then there's something called performing systematic Roth conversions, where you pay the tax today to shift the money from your pre-tax bucket to your tax-free bucket, which also has the ability to lower your future tax liability. Because at the end of the day, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So none of these mistakes are irreversible, and they can all be fixed or avoided entirely with the right kind of financial planning. So take the time to create a plan, test your spending, adjust your risk, prepare for healthcare costs, and understand how taxes really work in retirement. If you haven't already downloaded the Retirement by Design guide, again, I'll include a link below. I'm Zach Morris, and I'm a certified financial planner and founder of Paces Ferry Wealth Advisors. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos on retirement, tax strategy, and financial planning.